Senator Tammy Duckworth is a Democrat from Illinois who serves on the Armed Services Committee, also an Iraq War veteran and Purple Heart recipient, and she joins me now. Senator, it's very good to have you, and I have to say some of the rhetoric that I've heard out of elected officials and others out of Washington seems to kind of just forget all of this the decades built up of the logic of the Cold War, which again is its own grim, terrible logic that led to all sorts of awful things, but is what it is. Like, do you and your colleagues understand what we're dealing with here? I guess I want to start out by asking.
I certainly understand it, and not the least of which because when I joined the Army, we were still training to fight the Soviets and to defend the Fulda Gap. And in fact, the Illinois National Guard was some of the last uniformed U.S. personnel in Ukraine helping train Ukrainian troops. California and Illinois National Guards have been the two states providing training to the Ukrainians, and they've really acquitted themselves so incredibly well. But you got this absolutely right, Chris. We cannot risk going to a hot war with U.S. troops firing on Russian troops. There's a lot that we can do for the Ukrainians, and I am supporting doing everything that we can to include transfer of aircraft, to include sending them more missiles and more javelins, all the things that they need, and also more humanitarian aid. But we really have to be very careful about taking that first step towards escalation where you have American and U.S. forces fighting one another.
You mentioned the sending of aircraft. This has been sort of, I think, offered. Again, everyone, I think, all policymakers are trying to deal with a situation in which you can produce costs to Putin's invasion and outs for it, right, to get him to stop, withdraw, negotiate, right? Without triggering, obviously, a hot war. The idea of transferring Russian-made fighter jets, MiGs, that are in the possession of, say, Poland, to the Ukrainians has been an idea floated by the Polish government and the Ukrainians and some American policymakers. I want to play you what Senator Mitt Romney says, who supports the plan. Take a listen.
Send these MiGs. And the question is, well, why aren't they being sent? Because we've heard now for days that this is something that's being discussed. Enough talk. People are dying. Send them the planes that they need. They say they need MiGs. People say, well, maybe that's not the ideal weapon for them. That's what they say they want. They're there. They have the eyes to determine what they want. They want MiGs. Get them the MiGs.
Now, my understanding of the concern on the part of the administration are the same concerns about other escalatory steps, that this would be a kind of tripwire. What's your view on this?
Well, I think it would be considered an escalatory step by the Russians, although I'm not opposed to the sending of the aircraft. I do think that there are other weaponry that we can send that have much more immediate effect. And I think you can see that from some of the footage of the ground battles that you're seeing of us the Ukrainians taking out Russian tanks with missiles and anti-tank weaponry. I think that might be a good first step to send them more of that type of equipment. I'm not opposed to sending them the MiGs, but it's not that easy to transfer the MiGs from Poland to U.S. bases in Germany. And then how do you get them into Ukraine? If we can't fly them into Ukraine, do we fly Ukrainian pilots into Poland to Germany to get the MiGs? See, it gets very, very, very complicated very quickly.
Yeah, and I guess, again, the invisible tripwires around this are precisely the architecture I was describing in that A-block monologue. I mean, we want to keep front of mind here. I think there's also a question here about what the end game is here. And I know no one knows that, and this is not anyone. No one can unilaterally control the future. But I've been reading some interesting things about what the effect of sanctions are. What is your understanding of what the sanctions are designed or going to do in an ideal case? How do you understand their pressure working?
Well, I mean, we need to cut off Russia from their source of income, and we are doing that. But part of this is going after the oligarchs. Putin has surrounded himself by folks who will not say no to him. And, we need to start making this so painful, not just for him, but for the people around him, to get them to push him to do something different, to stop this continued doubling down and tripling down that he's doing. We have to, first and foremost, cut off Russia from the funds that they need in order to wage this war. But then we also have to hurt the people around him, the ones that are empowering him to continue to pursue this war. And it's just been absolutely horrific. You're watching this footage and they're committing war crimes in Ukraine. And we certainly need to do everything that we can to stop them. And in fact, I'm about to head to the floor here, the Senate floor, and vote for a bill that includes $14 billion in aid to Ukraine.
All right. There's large bipartisan majorities, it appears, in both houses for precisely that provision. Senator Tammy Duckworth, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.